Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us. I'm Janessa Goldbeck, CEO of Vet Voice Foundation. It's an honor to welcome you to this critical conversation about veterans, public lands, and the threats we're facing now. America's public lands are more than just scenic landscapes. For many veterans, they are places of healing, connection, and even economic opportunity. Many of us have found solace and purpose in these spaces after our service. Others have built their businesses and livelihoods around outdoor recreation, and thousands of veterans continue their service through careers in conservation and land management. But today, these lands and everything they represent are under threat. The Trump administration's efforts to roll back national monument protections are not just policy decisions. They are a direct attack on veterans' well-being and livelihoods. If these rollbacks occur, it will put small businesses at risk, cut jobs, and strip away protections that have existed for generations. And that's why we're here today, to fight back. This town hall is about action. You're going to hear directly from veterans who have been impacted by these policy changes, from those working on the front lines of conservation, and from experts who are helping us raise the alarm. We'll also be unveiling a powerful new ad campaign that underscores what's at stake and calls on Congress to step up and defend our public lands. We want this to be a conversation, so we encourage you to submit your questions. We'll be addressing them throughout the event. To kick things off, I'm honored to introduce our first guest, Sara Aminzadeh, Deputy Secretary for External Affairs at the California Natural Resources Agency. Sara has been a fierce advocate for protecting public lands and ensuring they remain accessible for all Americans. Sara, thank you so much for being here. Can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about the role that the California Natural Resources Agency plays in protecting public lands?
Yes, and thank you for having me. I'm super happy to be here. I've had the opportunity to meet Janessa and members of this organization at different public lands events, and I've been really impressed and heartened by the way that they show up to share how much public lands mean to veterans. In terms of the state's role, we are on a mission to conserve 30% of California's lands and coastal waters by 2030. Ensuring outdoor access for all. So both initiatives are very important to Governor Newsom. And in our role at California Natural Resources Agency, we work tirelessly at every level of government in every corner of the state to permanently and durably protect public lands for all.
Well, we really appreciate that work. Thank you. And thank you to Secretary Crowfoot as well for those efforts. Sara, recent reports have highlighted that the Trump administration may be considering revoking protections for some of California's national monuments, Chuckwalla and potentially Septitla, and elsewhere across the country, threatening millions of acres of already protected lands. How do you feel about this, and what's your response?
Yeah, I think, we're all seeing a lot of different activities by the Trump administration. The news cycles seem to bring a lot of surprises, but I'm really hopeful that the Trump administration will not roll back monuments, which have been bipartisan supported, designed by local electeds on both sides of the aisle and by tribes. And I've been really encouraged. A Republican assembly member from California said, "I hope the Trump administration doesn't alter the monument. It's extremely popular across the political spectrum and was advocated for by a large bipartisan coalition." So I think we know that monuments and public lands protections are overwhelmingly popular by both Democrats and Republicans. We are seeing a lot of activity, a lot of, the new administration is trying different things. But I feel really hopeful and optimistic that this administration will leave these monuments in place. So I feel optimistic.
I think there's, there are very few things that Americans widely agree on, but public lands and protecting public lands is certainly one of them. I saw a poll today that showed that over 80% of Americans oppose rolling back protections for national monuments and national parks. So I too am hopeful that the Trump administration will look at those numbers and understand that this isn't a right or left issue. It's a bipartisan coalition came together to protect these monuments and hopefully keep them in place.
That's right. I mean, I used to serve on the California Coastal Commission for 5 years, and we heard, hours, if not days of public comments over that time. And what I was really struck by is that every Californian and every American wants access to an outdoor space for a family celebration for just some peace at the end of the day, to your earlier introduction and point at the end of some tough service to get some healing and reconnection. We know people do end of life celebrations. They get married, they celebrate birthdays and weddings and anniversaries. They have different family traditions, whether that be hunting or bird watching or fishing, RV trips. It really is common to every single person that I've come across, is just a desire to be outside. It really is the equalizer. And, it's the common person's country club, is their local park or their local monument. I feel really optimistic. We've seen a ton of support across the country for public lands in this moment. And I feel hopeful that we will land on the right side of things.
In terms of, in addition to the recreation activities and the sort of cultural activities that you mentioned on public lands, there's also a lot of economics involved with public lands. Many veterans rely on public lands as part of their post-service careers, both inside and outside of the government. Can you talk a little bit about what the outdoor recreation economy looks like in California?
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. There's a huge outdoor recreation economy. People come from all over the world to see some of these special places, like the wildflowers behind me, like a sacred lake, a special desert area. So it's a huge economic driver for local tourism, and local chambers are really supportive of public lands protections because people come. They fly to the area, they stay in the local hotels, they eat at the local restaurants, and then they work with outfitters to visit these areas in whatever ways they feel comfortable, whether that be a car-based tour, a biking tour, hiking. So it is huge for local economies, and that's something that both Republicans and Democrats have been voicing in recent days. We need these areas. They support our local economies, especially in rural areas that have few other industries. This is a huge economic driver. We see increased economic activity around monuments and other protected areas. So it's really not something we can afford to lose.
Yeah, that's a great point. And we're going to take a look at an ad here in just a second that makes that point. But assuming that, or if we are to see some public lands rollbacks, what can leaders at all levels of government do in response? And what would you ask our viewers to do as well if public lands near them are under threat?
Yeah, I think just continue to make your voices heard. We know that representatives at every level of government are listening. They're having town halls. They track their social media, of course. I think in this moment, people are really looking for leadership, and we know that leadership comes from veterans and comes from community leaders who know best what should be happening in their communities. So make your voices heard in whatever way feels right to you. And just know that the vast majority of your community members are with you. You're not alone, and your voice does matter. We know that leaders at every level of government are paying attention. So just continue to make your voices heard and talk about how it impacts you. Talk about how special these areas are to you. Talk about how it feels maybe to go to a local trail or a local area and have the bathroom be closed, or have some of the basic services at places not be available. Again, these are not partisan issues. I think everybody wants to be able to visit a local park, a local monument, have a safe and clean bathroom to use, have some basic support for people that are disabled, and have those services available. It's really common to everybody. So yeah, just continue to make your voices heard. Stay plugged into communities like Vet Voice to get direction about where to best focus your efforts in any given moment. And just continue to pay attention, because it is making a difference. It's already making a difference. And I think veterans' voices in particular are really powerful. So I just want to thank everybody too. This community was essential in having these new monuments designated, and I believe will be essential in protecting these monuments for years to come.
Thank you so much for being with us, Sara. It really means a lot. And thanks to the California Natural Resources Agency for all you're doing.
Thanks, Janessa. Thanks, everybody.
So now we have something pretty special. We've actually never done this before. We're going to premiere a new ad that highlights the impacts of public lands rollbacks on veterans and small business owners right here for you today. So this is the first time this ad has been seen. We're looking forward to your feedback and also to talking to some of the stars of the ad right after this.
I was in the Navy for 6 years.
I served with 10th Special Forces. When I came back from Iraq, I found that coming out here just really helped.
There weren't many services for people coming to the national parks and forests. And so we established the Chester Hiker Hostels.
Congress needs to understand that public lands support thousands of rural economies across the country.
Small businesses like ours can only survive if public lands remain public.
My message to Congress, don't sell us out.
Awesome. So now we're going to hear about some of the personal stories that highlight the real world impact of these policy changes. So it's my pleasure to introduce Annika and Michael Peacock, both veterans and co-owners of Chester Hiker Hostels, along with Jay Toscano, an award-winning ad writer and director. Together, they've collaborated on the ad you just watched that underscores the stakes of protecting our public lands. So Annika, Michael, let's delve into your journey and learn a little bit more about the new ad campaign that's aiming to make a difference. You were terrific in the ad. Tell us a little bit about yourselves and why you agreed to be part of this.
Yeah, so that was our first time seeing the ad too, so that's really exciting. So we live in Chester, California, which is right outside of Lassen Volcanic National Park. We have a town of about 1,500 permanent residents, and pretty much people coming to do outdoor recreation is pretty much the only economy we've got here. There are some other things, but that's the majority of our economy. So that's where we're at.
And
we just got back from Joshua Tree National Park. We were there 2 days ago.
Amazing. I'm jealous. So how did you get connected? Jay, how did you find Annika and Michael? Like, tell us a little bit about the production process and sort of how this came to be.
Sure. So first, I think I'll start with saying that a big part of my job is taking the strategy. Like, we have data, we have polling, we have all kinds of information about what we need to actually do with the campaign, and then figure out how to bring that to life. And so for me, it's like using two sides of my brain, one the strategic side and then the creative side. And so, we knew coming into this that we had basically crafted a message that was really aimed at getting moderate, kind of mainstream senators, members of the House, to understand that that there are threats to our public lands, and that to give them kind of agency and ownership over, these are public lands that have been set aside, that a lot of these members who we're targeting have been part of the process in a bipartisan way, and that we're looking to them to protect them. And I think that the added piece of information that we wanted to add to it in this ad, that it wasn't just about protecting public lands because it's a public good, but that there are local economies, rural economies, mountain economies all over this country that will be affected in a really negative way, because people don't think about that. They don't think about the fact that there are hundreds of thousands of people whose livelihoods depend on these national parks and monuments. And so we wanted to find a story that helped tell that. And I mean, Annika and Michael came to us through some of the outreach that our folks did, looking for these kinds of stories. And and I think I think it's important for people right now to understand that we can't overemphasize the power of the voice of veterans. We have tons of research. We know through a dozen years of doing this, that when you just put that tag veteran up, it gives special resonance to a message. And even in this era where every kind of institution is being torn down, people do not trust anything. They still trust the perspectives of veterans. And so, as we lean into that, and obviously all we do, the name of the organization, right? That voice, named for that very reason. And so our job was to really, convince these members of Congress that they need to stand up, and not just because it's a good thing to do, but because there are people who they represent in these areas who will be adversely affected. And so we had, like I said, we had a sense of the message, but we always want to kind of do it in the voice and the story of the people who we are working with. And so I think Annika and Michael and I got on to a call, spent maybe an hour together at some point, just kind of like hearing out their story from like, not just the story of like what you see in a 30-second ad, but the story of how what their childhood was like, where they grew up, what their service was like, what coming out, because we want to incorporate that. And like in 30 seconds, you can't do a lot, but literally just the line, when I came back from Iraq, I can't remember. I can't remember the exact way you put it, Michael, but just that one line it showed you the value, right, of public lands to everybody, that everybody can understand. It wasn't about the economic piece yet, but we wanted to draw that connection for people because people feel that way. And a lot of the advertising that we do, we really try to focus in on that emotional trigger that's going to unlock that opportunity. And for me, it was literally that line when you talked about coming back from Iraq and what just being out here meant to you. And to be able to take we sat with you guys for 2 hours plus interviewing to kind of be able to boil that down to 30 seconds and get all of these components across. It means you literally have 3 or 4 words to convey what public lands meant to you coming back from war, right? But you did that so well, and it's your words. It's not something that where we put like words in your mouth and just had you spit it back out. So again, I think the authenticity of these real stories communicate in a way that scripted ads, which we do a ton of as well, can't really communicate, because it really, it draws a viewer in. You can't take your eyes away from this 30 seconds until you find out, okay, what is it that they want me to do? What is it that they want me to think? So
I think we'd all love to see the director's cut of that ad. I think there's more to the story, but
Yeah.
Since we have you here, Annika and Michael, I'd love to hear from you a little bit more about how your military service informed your relationship with public lands, and what it is that you want decision makers, members of Congress, to know about the relationship between vets and public lands.
I'm just gonna say that, like, I feel very strongly that this is one of the things that makes America worth defending. Like, my connection to the public lands, the national parks and monuments, it motivated me to think of America as a place I wanted to serve and maintain those beautiful spaces for everybody. And it was a huge motivator for me. And it also drew me out here to live, a life very close to some of these places.
Incredible. And I would imagine in your business, in your hostels, that you meet people from all over the country and all over the world and from all different backgrounds. And that's kind of a unique experience, but similar to the military, right? We serve with people of all stripes who are drawn to service. And that just must be a really incredible sort of experience to get to interact with folks like that who represent sort of the diversity of our world.
It is absolutely amazing, and it's particularly gratifying to be able to show people who are visiting, our part of America for the first time, just exactly how much just natural wealth we have to offer. It's truly amazing out here, and I think people kind of get overwhelmed by the beauty that they see so close to here.
Yeah, I think I agree with everything she said, and I just want to add, I think that our national parks, our national monuments, our public spaces are an expression of American soft power that I don't think should be ignored. When we have hikers come here and visit from all over the world, and I like to ask them, I'm like, where you live is a pretty beautiful place, and I would love to go and visit there. And I'm wondering why you would want to leave there and come here. And listening to their stories just really, they have all different reasons, but it just really drives home how great America actually is, and that this is one of the features that the world is jealous of, that they want to come and take part of, and I'm really proud of it. I want to keep it that way.
Well, thanks for what you both are doing to be stewards and ambassadors of our public lands. Thanks for volunteering to be the stars of this ad campaign. And I'll also say, if there are other folks who are watching or tuning into this who are interested in telling their story, either through an ad or another way, please get in touch with us. Let us know. We're always looking to highlight the stories of real people, veterans who are out there making a difference on behalf of our public lands. So thank you, Annika and Michael. Thanks, Jay, for being here. Really appreciate you.
Sure.
So now I want to introduce someone who has been on the front lines of conservation, both as a Marine Corps veteran and as a former lead forest ranger. Gregg Bafundo has dedicated his career to protecting public lands, but like so many others, he has seen firsthand the consequences of these rollbacks. Gregg, thank you for being here. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience and what these attacks on public lands and the agencies that serve them mean for those working to protect them?
Yeah, hi Janessa, and thanks for letting me come and be present here. I came to working on public lands actually from the private sector. Prior to that, I was in the Marine Corps, and I worked for a developer and saw and witnessed firsthand the impacts of irresponsible development. And in my mind, I always felt like something was missing. And to me, what was missing was honestly that uniform. I missed getting up every day and putting on green clothes and going and trying to make the world a better place. And so the opportunity to give back came to me through some volunteer work. And I worked for a couple nonprofits, and then that led into me asking myself the question of, what if I could be 8 years old again, what would I do? And there were two things I wanted to be when I was 8 years old. And one was a U.S. Marine and the other one was a park ranger. And I achieved the goal of being a U.S. Marine. And then at 42 years old, I got an opportunity to be a wilderness ranger for the U.S. Forest Service. And so I've always been, a bit of a hard charger and a go-getter. And I just kept up with 25-year-old kids, and I was able to live a very healthy lifestyle. I didn't do it for the money. I did it for service. And it's really, really unfortunate to see this current administration not understanding that, when America serves America, when the United States serves the United States, we are better for it. And so, it's just being able to put that uniform on again and being able to serve with my brothers and sisters brought it back to me in a way that that just made it right. And for me, the outdoors and the woods are my church. I don't know how else to describe it other than it's my church. And I remember being deployed and thinking about coming home, and all I wanted to do was go on a backpack trip. And the place I chose was called Dolly Sods, West Virginia. And it's a little wilderness area now. It's maybe 50 square miles. And so I was able to come home from overseas, and I came back and I took off my Alice pack. I'm dating myself with my Alice pack reference there, and I put on my Kelty external frame backpack, dating myself again. And I went on a backpack trip, and I came back a better person for that trip. And DOGE, and the impacts are they're unrealized at this point, but they're almost all negative.
Well, Gregg, and you had a very personal experience with DOGE, which is in the news quite a bit these days. You were, without cause, fired by DOGE.
Yes.
What's something you wish people like Elon Musk knew about our public lands and those who steward them? What kinds of negative consequences, aside from your own employment, have you seen with these cuts?
We're not waste and fraud. We're not the parasite class that Musk calls us. We don't do this for money. We don't do this because we're able to stake out a claim of some ground somewhere and keep it all to ourselves. We do this for guys like Musk. We do this for people who voted for President Trump. We do this for people who voted for Harris. We don't bring our politics in. We just try to make it better and safer. And it's just so short-sighted. Public lands are the great equalizer. And if I were to put on a backpack and hike down a trail in one of the wilderness areas that I used to patrol, and Elon Musk would put on a backpack and hike down that same trail, he and I would be equals. And maybe that is a little bit of the threat that he feels, that he can't be equal to somebody who makes $35,000 a year working for the federal government. But federal lands lift us all up, and they empower us, and they make us better, and they're the great equalizer. And it's through that connection with public lands that Americans can exert their power and their beliefs. And I love that comment that was said about our public lands being an extension of our soft power. One of the sections that I patrol is the Pacific Crest Trail. Mm-hmm. And it's an international trail. And I would stake out for 8 days at a time, and I would travel up and down the trail, and I would ask people where they're from. And one of the highlights of my trip was encountering people from 14 different countries in a single day on that trail: Israel and France, Uzbekistan, Belgium, the Netherlands. People came from everywhere. And it created this international connection that you don't get when we're isolated in our homes and acting as desktop warriors. And it was lovely. And apparently, according to Elon and friends, that's not doing my duty.
Well, as someone who has spent significant amount of time on the PCT, that sounds like the greatest job in the world. And Marine to Marine, I'm furious for how you were treated, how so many of our National Forest Service, Department of Interior employees, public servants have been treated, how veterans across our government have been treated and fired without cause because of these cuts. And I'm just so grateful to you, Gregg, that you have decided to use your voice to highlight in such a poetic and truly powerful way the importance of these public lands, of these jobs. I loved what you said about America lifting America up. That is exactly what public servants do, public servants like you, and just really want to say thanks for being here and being part of our team.
Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
So before we wrap up, I do want to take a moment to just thank all of our amazing guests today: Sara Aminzadeh, Annika and Michael Peacock, Jay Toscano, and Gregg Bafundo, for sharing their powerful insights, their experiences. All of their stories make it clear that protecting public lands isn't just about preserving scenic spaces, although that's important too. It's also about standing up for veterans, standing up for small business owners, standing up for outdoor recreation jobs, and standing up for the very identity of who we are as a nation. We cannot allow rollbacks to go unchallenged, and that's why we need you to take action. So first, please help us spread the word by sharing our new ad on social media. You can find it on all of the accounts, all of our accounts. The more people who see it, the more pressure we can put on Congress to do the right thing. So please tag your representatives and tell them why public lands matter and demand they stand up to these attacks. Second, please stay engaged with Vet Voice Foundation. Follow us, sign up for updates, join us in this fight, or donate to support our work. We are building a movement of veterans and allies who believe in protecting our country's natural heritage, not just for ourselves, but for future generations. Our public lands belong to all of us, not to corporations, not to special interests, and certainly not to billionaires and politicians looking to make a quick deal. This fight isn't over, and with your help, we will keep pushing forward. So thank you again for being a part of this conversation. Thank you for using your voice, and thank you for standing with us. We'll see you out there.